Crypto chaos, Bitcoin and its rivals slump as leading exchange FTX faces bankruptcy. We'll look at how much trouble the sector is in. And we'll look ahead to the US inflation data, with rising prices still having a big impact on the Federal Reserve's interest rates. I'll be speaking to a former Fed economist in Washington. Hello and welcome to World Business Report. I'm Jonathan Josephs. Thanks for joining us wherever in the world you are. Let's start in the world of cryptocurrencies, because one of the world's biggest exchanges, they're the platforms that let people buy and sell digital currencies, is facing bankruptcy. FTX was hoping to be rescued by its bigger rival Binance, but it has now walked away, saying it is unable to help. FTX's problems could lead to billions of dollars of losses, as it stopped customers withdrawing their money. It's also rocked the wider crypto world, with many of the most popular currencies, such as Bitcoin and Ethereum, seeing big falls in their value. Bitcoin is now at a 2-year low. From New York, Michelle Fleury has more details.
Cryptocurrencies had already been having a bad year. Exactly a year ago, the value of Bitcoin hit its all-time high. Since then, it has lost more than 3/4 of its value. Now attention has turned to the crypto exchanges. 2 companies had taken the lead in offering marketplaces where investors could buy and sell their holdings in crypto. One of them, FTX, had even set about rescuing a number of rival crypto companies when they got in trouble, making its CEO, Sam Bankman-Fried, into something of a celebrity. But it turns out that FTX's own finances were far from solid. A sudden departure of many investors from its market and a huge sell-off in its own cryptocurrency left FTX on the brink of collapse. Enter Binance, the biggest of all crypto exchanges. On Tuesday, it said it would be willing to take over the ailing FTX. But on Wednesday, it announced that it couldn't save FTX, all of which would appear to leave one of the biggest and high-profile crypto companies in ruins, and yet another dent in investors' faith in the cryptocurrency sector as a whole. Some within the industry referring to this as crypto's Lehman moment, a reference to the 2008 collapse of a large investment bank, which revealed the fragility of many financial institutions.
Michelle Fleury in New York for us there. Well, another reason that crypto has been having such a tough time is the increase in interest rates from conventional central banks. And we'll get another big clue which way they're heading in the US, the world's biggest economy, in a couple of hours' time, because that's when the latest inflation data comes out. In September, prices were rising at an annualized rate of 8.2%. And if that number falls, it will be a welcome sign that the cost of living crisis might be starting to ease just a little bit. Well, let's bring in Claudia Sahm from Washington. She is an economic consultant and former Federal Reserve economist. Claudia, thank you for getting up so early to talk to us. Just wonder, what are you expecting when this number comes out, and what might that mean for the US economy?
I expect we're going to see a little bit of relief. So as you said, year over year, inflation's been running a little over 8%. We could easily see it move below 8%. And it's important to note this is a good bit under its peak earlier in the year, which was about 9. So we're moving in the right direction, but so slowly. So prices are still rising. Inflation is too high.
And you say inflation is too high, and it is still well above the Fed's target of 2%. So even if it comes down a little bit, we'll still be way ahead there. The other part of the Fed's mandate is to keep an eye on the jobs market, and that's still going pretty strong. And we've got the holiday season coming upon us with Thanksgiving and Christmas. That's normally a sign of strong consumer demand. So do you expect that will stop inflation from easing very much in the months ahead?
I expect we're going to see inflation coming down, but slowly. The jobs are great in the United States. Consumers spend their money, and a lot of their money comes from their paychecks. So we have seen consumers still in there buying, and then that means businesses, even if a lot of the things they need to put on the shelf are cheaper, well, you know, if they can sell it at a profit, they're going to, right? So but slowly we are seeing, you know, the jobs aren't as much as they were before, the wage growth. So we're going to see that pressure come off. It will get to consumers eventually, but this is not going to be a 1 month we get a data read and we're back to normal.
So long-term picture there, and the big concern for investors is what it does with interest rates. How high do you think the Fed will go, and how much of a danger is there that they will push the US economy into a recession?
I think the Federal Reserve has started to signal that they're going to probably start slowing it down. The thing that has been notable this year with the Federal Reserve, and it's had consequences around the world, is they have gone big and they have gone fast. So interest rates have risen a lot already this year. There's a lot of people that say we got another maybe percentage point, 2% even, it's coming, and that will have been a massive increase within 1 year. But I mean, inflation is really high. The Fed needs to slow it down. There are a lot of instabilities in financial markets, and we're putting a lot of pressure on European Central Bank, the Bank of England, to raise rates when UOL's inflation that's energy. And so there's a really problematic dynamic happening. And the United States economy comes into this in a position of strength. We are going to come out of this the best of anyone, but that may not be saying much.
Claudia, you're talking about the picture around the world there. I mean, one other impact is that when the Fed pushes interest rates up, the dollar gets stronger, and that has an impact on economies around the world, making inflation worse there, with commodities, for instance, being more expensive. You've been inside the Federal Reserve. Just briefly, how much thinking do they give to that impact around the world?
The Federal Reserve has a mandate from Congress that is specific to the United States: stable prices and maximum employment. The Fed is very clear that it will do its job, which is based on the United States. They do pay attention to the rest of the world. I think they are underestimating the effects of a global recession on the United States. We are going to get inflation down. The strong dollar, we are importing disinflation. It is cheaper for us to get the imported goods, and a lot of our goods are imported, but we are exporting inflation, and we are exporting it not just to developing countries with higher commodity prices. We are exporting it to Europe. This is absolutely a beggar thy neighbor strategy. It's extremely unfortunate, I think, and it can be extremely destabilizing, not just to economies around the world, but again to financial markets.
Claudia Sahm, former Federal Reserve economist in Washington, thank you very much for joining us. And those US inflation numbers out in just under 2 hours, so they'll be on the BBC website amongst other places, so do keep an eye on those. Let's look at some other stories making headlines this hour. China's new Politburo Standing Committee has held its first meeting calling for unwavering support for what it called the country's dynamic zero COVID policy, and saying endemic prevention measures must not be relaxed. That's according to a state media report. And it's also just been announced that the Beijing International Automotive Exhibition, known as Auto China, will not take place this year due to the COVID-19 situation in the country, which is one of the world's biggest car markets. Twitter's new owner, Elon Musk, is bringing an end to remote working for his cutback workforce. In his first email to staff, he said he expects them to put in at least 40 hours a week in the office, and also said that he wants to work towards subscriptions representing half of Twitter's revenue. That has, of course, been a very controversial move. Commuters in Paris have faced significant disruption on Thursday as a general strike has triggered the complete closure of the metro and has heavily reduced services on other public transport. The CGT union has called industrial action to pressure employers into matching wages and high-running inflation. Matching wages with high running inflation. Metro stations were quiet nonetheless as travellers made other arrangements. There's also a similar strike going on in London. And finally, let's go to the Egyptian resort of Sharm el-Sheikh, where global leaders are holding climate talks at the COP27 summit. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has been attacking countries and companies who make pledges on cutting emissions whilst continuing to invest in fossil fuels, so-called greenwashing. Here's a bit of what he had to say.
We must have zero tolerance for net zero greenwashing. Using bogus net zero pledges to cover up massive fossil fuel expansion is reprehensible. It is rank deception. The sham must end.
That's all for this edition of World Business Report. Plenty more on the website. Thanks for watching.